I'd like to call to order the MAPC meeting for today, Thursday, October 22nd. If we could have the opening comments, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those at Century 2, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representative to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room or the GoToMeeting comments box. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to district court.
Thank you. And before we get started, just a reminder that when asking questions or making a comment, if you could please speak into the microphone that's before you so it's easier for the minutes to be recorded. With that, we'll move on to the approval of the MAPC meeting minutes for October 8th. And according to what I see here, Florence and Blick were absent.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Bill Johnson. Are there any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Same sign. Thank you. We'll work our way through the agenda here, starting off with a subdivision committee recommendation of the one-step final plat for Big Shots Edition, subdivision case number 42. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear this item? Anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this item?
No comment from Century 2.
Anybody on virtually attending the meeting that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, we'll take this one on consent.
Move to approve agenda item 2.1.
Been moved by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Hicks, to approve the item, Big Shots Edition. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to the vacation items. Item 3.1, vacation number 35. It's a 5-foot building setback located south of 31st Street South and 1 mile east of Rock Road. Anybody on the commission that would like to hear this item? Seeing none. Anybody in Century 2 that would like to hear this item?
No comment.
Anybody joining us virtually that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, we'll take that on consent. Item 3.2, vacation number 36. It's a vacation to revise the text for permitted uses of a reserve to allow development of a neighborhood pool located approximately at 29th Street North and Hoover Road. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear this item? Anybody in Century 2 that would like to hear this item?
No comment from Century 2.
Anybody virtually that would like to hear this item? Hearing none, we'll take that on consent. Moving on to item 3.3, vacation number 37, vacation of a platted utility easement and drainage easement for construction of a private pool located at 1901 North Wooddale. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this item? Is there anyone in Century 2 that would like to hear this item?
No comment at Century 2.
Is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this item? Hearing none, we'll take that one on consent. Item 3.4 is vacation number 38. It's a access control for portions of a platted reserve for driveway access located generally at 159th Street East and 21st Street North. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, anybody at Century 2 that would like to hear this item?
No comment from Century 2.
Is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this item?
Hey, I got a question.
On 3.4?
Now on our agenda, the numbers are different. That's 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, which are, and you're saying 33, 32, 33, 34. What's going on there?
Oh, it was item number 3.4, and the vacation case number is 38.
Okay.
Does that help, Terrell?
All right. Yeah.
Okay. We'll take vacation number 38 on consent. Moving on to item 3.5, vacation number 39, vacation of a portion of a platted floodway easement located at 13930 East Lakeview Drive. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, is there anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this item?
No comment from Century 2.
Thank you. Is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this item? Hearing none, we'll take that on consent also.
Chairman Green, I'd like to make a motion to approve 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, and 3.5.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded by, the motion was made by Mr. Blick, second by Mr. Hartman. Any questions on the motion to approve? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And for the minutes, Mr. Yearout, if you could please note that it was Mr. Nix, not Mr. Hicks, on the first motion. I apologize.
Close, you're close.
You knew who I meant. Okay. Moving on to the public hearing. We've got the comprehensive plan. If we could have that presentation, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Stephen Banks with the Advanced Plans section of the Metropolitan Area Planning Department. On October 21st, 2015, the County Commission voted 4-1 to have the urban areas of influence coincide with the urban growth areas of each city in the joint city-county comprehensive plan. The urban areas of influence are a regulatory gift from the County Commission to small cities that allows them to review and give comments on development activity within these areas surrounding their cities. That is because most counties do not have countywide zoning, but Sedgwick County does. In January 2016, the Community Investments Plan was adopted and included the 2035 Urban Growth Areas map to portray the anticipated growth patterns in each of the communities. Every 2 years, or 1 or 2 years, the Advanced Plans Division has made an effort to communicate with the cities to see if there were any changes desired. And in 2017, there were a couple of minor amendments to the urban growth areas map in the comp plan to give us the current map. In October of 2019, the MAPD was asked by members of the Board of County Commissioners to look at expanding the urban growth or urban areas of influence for each of the small cities in Sedgwick County. And in a letter that went out to them, we asked them to look at their growth patterns, their building permits, subdivision activity, their comprehensive plans, and the ability to provide a full range of municipal services backed by engineering reports as appropriate, and other evidence to bolster their case. By January of 2020, 10 cities had expressed interest to expand their urban area of influence, but later one of those 10 did decide to wait until next year to submit their changes. Map 1, which you see before you, shows the existing urban areas of influence with the solid colors around the small cities in the county. The expansion areas are the hashed areas outside of those solid existing areas. During the summer of 2020, representatives from Wichita and Goddard discussed the overlap of proposed Goddard's expansion. There had been an area between I think it's 167th, that mile section where you see the northwest bypass coming down, and they did go ahead and decide to not do that. Both the city of Wichita and Sedgwick County have an interest in providing a floodplain or flood control project in that area, and most of that area would become floodplain once that happened. On September 10th of 2020, the Advanced Plans Committee recommended that the MAPC approve the changes to the other urban areas of influence except for Goddard and Garden Plain at this time. If you go to map 2, this shows Goddard and Garden Plain would retain their 2017 boundaries, and those would remain in place, but we would then ask Goddard and Garden Plain to submit formal requests next year to change their urban area of influence. Once agreements have been reached between their communities, and their comprehensive plans have been updated. If you'll go back to map 1, you will notice that there is an overlap of the gold and blue hashed areas in a couple of square miles. One is immediately north of US 54, and the other one's 2 miles south of there. And both of these communities are looking at the same area, so we'd like them to resolve that. In addition, of course, the advanced plans recommend the setting of this public hearing today. The recommended action would actually affect 2 separate but related elements. The urban growth areas are part of the comprehensive plan, but the urban areas of influence are actually part of the zoning code. So you'll actually be taking 2 actions in this. In terms of the cities requesting changes, Hayesville, Cheney, Derby, Mulvane, and Valley Center have provided the information needed, and their cases are pretty straightforward. There were no conflicts or issues there. 2 more cities did have some issues. Mount Hope was happy with what they call their urban growth area, but would like to see all of Greeley Township as their area of influence. They do not have capacity to provide infrastructure to all of the township, however. Andale, similarly, they did want to expand in some smaller areas to the northwest and south based upon landowner and development interests, and they do have capacity to serve in those areas, but they also wanted to see all of Sherman Township as their area of influence. They do not have capacity to provide infrastructure to all of the township either. So the Advanced Plans Committee of the MAPC rejected the township-wide urban area of influence for both of these communities, citing that they didn't have the capacity to provide the infrastructure and didn't really have much to confirm growth into those areas. The cities with conflicts I have already mentioned, Garden Plain and Goddard, and the resolution of part of that with the city of Wichita. Going back to map 2, this would be our recommendation. However, going to map 3, this was an idea utilizing state statute as a guide to resolve the conflict between Goddard and Garden Plain. In counties without countywide zoning, a community can choose to exercise zoning for up to 3 miles outside of their city limits, but not more than halfway between it and another community. There is a dashed 3-mile ring that shows the extent of what that would be at 3 miles, and then the solid line is approximately 2 miles distant, kind of showing where that halfway point would be. To go to map 4, this shows changes to the 2035 urban growth areas map that we would be amending with these urban area of influence changes. But while we're doing this, we would want to go ahead and clean up some other things on the map. The statement under the map title is being changed to reflect that the map does reflect the urban areas of influence versus the old, that it does not reflect the old zoning areas of influence that were done away with in 2015. The language under the small city urban growth areas is being changed to reflect this also, and the language under established central areas being updated to reflect the adoption of the Places for People plan And then we're also recognizing McConnell as a separate district in the next change highlighted there in yellow, since it actually is not an industrial or improvement district. Just cleaning that language up as well as the legend to show those things. So today we are recommending approval of the changes to the urban growth areas of the community investments plan shown in map 2, and with the exception of Goddard and Garden Plain, as explained before, having them submit changes next year. And then the urban areas of influence, we are making asking for a recommendation to changes to the city's urban areas of influence, except Goddard and Garden Plain, as part of the Unified Zoning Code, and the Board of County Commissioners will actually adopt this. So, if there are any questions?
Do we have any questions? Yes, Mr. McKay?
One of the requirements for the area of influence, do they have to be able to provide public services to those areas, or have the capacity to do so?
In coming up with the urban growth area, that has always been our standard, that it be tied to infrastructure services. So since they are currently, since urban areas of influence and since urban growth areas and urban areas of influence are currently tied, we've maintained that standard. Now, they could be separated, but we've not had any direction from advanced plans or the county commission or anyone else to separate them. So we are using that as the standard at this time.
The reason why I asked that question is because in the past, the area that I'm talking about is west of Valley Center. Most of that's in the floodplain.
It is. But they have addressed that in their submission, and they have a rather robust floodplain management program too.
But how can they provide services to them when you got to go through two rivers?
Well, it would be expensive.
That's the only question that I had was that they seem to be wanting like 10 or 12 sections of ground, and most of it's unusable and everything else. And other than just, we went through this 5 or 6 years ago.
And I did point that out, but they said they would tie their floodplain master plan to this request.
But they don't have the capacity to furnish public utility, especially sewer.
They have capacity for much of this area. They are undertaking a massive change to their water program, trying to expand it. So by the time they would be getting requests up there, they think they would have things in place.
So they don't have to prove that prior to us approving this, is what you're saying?
I think because it is long range, we're giving them some slack.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I would chime in on that, yes. At this stage, we're dealing only with a future capacity, not a current capacity question. Mr. McKay's raised valid questions, but this is not the same as an annexation. The annexation would say, no, you got to show you got the ability now or in a very short time to provide services. We're not doing that for this process. This is pure planning.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification. Mr. Dool?
So this has come up in the past, looked at things out.
If you can speak into your microphone.
Up to the microphone.
Thank you.
What authority does this urban area of influence give to a community? It has to do, I think, with planning and zoning changes within the county. Can you expand on that?
Yes, it would be zoning cases that would be coming before you in the unincorporated area, but within these areas, we also notify the small cities if they want to make comments on and they may take it to their planning commission for a up or down vote.
And I would add in that process, they are given the right to review and comment. Their comments, if they are negative, would impose automatically, at least on first appearance, a supermajority requirement at the county commission level, but they do not have a veto authority. It's just a review and comment.
Okay. Mr. Foster, did you have a comment or question?
Just a couple questions. The two cities that were mentioned that did want to expand into those township areas, are they on board, or will they provide testimony related to that with the decision not to include the township area?
I have not heard anything. I did inform them of the advanced plans decision when that was made. They were kind of disappointed. I said, you know, this will be going to the full MAPC. I don't know if they're online or at Century 2. And I said it would also be going before the county commission.
Second question is, will you take this information and is it combined into a single map? Both the urban areas of influence and the growth. Will that go on a single map then?
Yes, we will change the hashed areas to solid, and they will become part of the urban growth areas map of the comprehensive plan, with the stipulation that they also reflect the same urban areas of influence are the same.
Okay. I'll have some questions later, but just want to hear the testimony. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is there anybody in Century 2 that would like to speak to this item?
There's no comment from Century 2.
Is there anyone virtually that would like to address this item? Seeing none?
Are they all muted?
Seeing none, we'll come back to the commission. Mr. Foster, did you have an additional comment or question?
No, I just did have some questions, and this would be for folks on advanced plans and Stephen as well. What was discussed about annexation policies when these communities potentially are going to take on or provide comment for something? There was some discussion in the staff report about annexation, but what I'm concerned about is the relationship between the rural development policies and then these communities eventually taking on plats or whatever it might be. And I just was curious about that discussion.
Well, annexation trumps the urban growth areas. So if they have a consent case, someone comes to the city for annexation, or if the city makes some attempt to annex into an area. For instance, there are areas down between Goddard and Garden Plain. They're right up to each other, but there's open land between them. If a city wants to annex, that actually, if that goes through, it trumps the urban growth area. The urban growth area is really to kind of provide a future projection of where growth is expected. But when communities get really tied close together, well, just look up around Mays and Wichita up there. You've got that Swiss cheese up there with pieces of Wichita and Mays and vice versa. You know, it's a little bit of a mess there. Mm-hmm. So annexation does trump this.
Mr. Chairman, and let me chime in on that. Mr. Foster raises a very good question that this is probably the great time to talk about that. The annexation would depend upon the form of the annexation being considered. If a landowner is adjacent to an existing city and petitions that city to annex, that simply requires the city to pass an ordinance to do that. There is no outside review or evaluation or other factor like that that could possibly come to this Planning Commission for review and comment with consistency with the comprehensive plan. If a city engages in unilateral annexations where adjoining properties are eligible to be notified of the intent for the city to annex, but you don't have owner consent, that's called a unilateral annexation authority. But that process requires public hearings, a plan for extension of services by that city, and the statute also envisions that the proposed annexation would also be reviewed by the Planning Commission having jurisdiction to determine whether or not that's consistent with the plans, which gets into the annexation policies within the plan. The other thing that could crop up, and we actually have that kind of going on right now, is if a landowner requests annexation, but they do not physically touch the existing primary body of the city, it can be approved. It's called an island annexation, but that also takes a county commission action to find that if that is allowed to go through, that, and that's essentially the landowners agreeing, the city's agreeing to annex them in, you're not contiguous, but the county commission has to find that it will not harm any other community or the area growth area, and that's going on right now with Clearwater, as a matter of fact. So it depends on the methodology that is initiating the annexation process. Most of what we have seen in the past several years has been owner consent to the city, whether it was Wichita or any of the other cities going on. And that's usually because I want utility services or public services from that city, which is not something the county provides. I want to develop my property. I need to be in the city to do that. That's the city's policy. So it's hard for a county plan to get too deep into annexation policy questions, simply because the role they play by statute is subservient, for the most part, to what the city does and what the landowner chooses to do with that respective city. So it's something that I think everybody needs to be aware of, but there is not a one-size-fits-all way to handle what goes on, because it really is going to be driven by the circumstances involved with the particular annexation in question, whether that was an owner consent to that city and it's adjoining, you're never going to hear about it, or whether it's a unilateral annexation, we haven't seen those in a while. You got some people here, I think Stephen was here years ago when Wichita used to do a lot of that stuff, and yeah, those get wild. And occasionally an island annexation, but you're not going to see much more. So I hope that helps.
Okay. Mr. Foster, I know you still had some more questions. Did you want?
I just want clarification.
Okay.
Are you indicating that Clearwater has petitioned, is it Wichita or Derby for island annexation?
No, they have filed a resolution of intent. We just got that within the last couple of days. That went to the county commission, which is what the statute requires them to do. Of two landowners right north of their city that have petitioned to be annexed. And the backstory, as I understand it, is in both those instances, they're individual landowners in rural subdivisions that had relied upon on-site water wells that are going bad, and the city has city water utility services in the area. They want to now hook onto the city, and the city policy is to do that. You got to annex, so they've agreed to do that. But because they do not join the main body of Clearwater, it's an island annexation, and that's going through now. That's not involving the Planning Commission. It's simply a resolution finding by the Board of County Commissioners. That's what the statutes require, that they have to say, yep, we've reviewed it. We've had all our people look at it. This island annexation is not going to harm the overall growth area of anybody in the area, and it's not going to harm another city. And, you know, there's not another city in Sedgwick County that close to Clearwater. So, and there's other land in those two subdivisions that have gone in previously under the same process. So,
thank you.
Mr. Warren?
I don't want to chase rabbits here, but So you got a situation where you've got a landowner that borders up next to a city. What if he borders up next to two cities? You know, one side is with Wichita and the other side is with Goddard. And he chooses to annex with Goddard, or vice versa. If the land is bordered by more than one city, does that change the rules, or is there a process that they need?
The experience I've had all over the state with those laws is, no, it's kind of like first come, first serve. And, you know, if I'm adjacent to, let's use your example, I own land that abuts both Wichita and Goddard, and I choose to cut a deal with Goddard and petition them to annex it, they are eligible because we have property that borders. There's nothing that prohibits Goddard from proceeding to file, and how a city annexes the land, they have to pass an ordinance, publish it, and then record that with the county clerk's office. And when they do that, that effectively creates the boundary of law. Now, the fact that I also have a border common with Wichita, they're not even required to notify the other cities. It just happens. So it becomes a first serve, first in. So, and we've got a lot of cities around within Sedgwick County where you can get into those kind of things. And I think there's probably been some annexation wars in the past where that's been done. And that's not unique to Sedgwick County. I was involved with some massive annexation wars in Johnson County over the same kind of stuff. And it was very educational. But the bottom line was that, no, the law basically says there's a procedure outlined in the statute, and if everything is legally done, and you're the first one in to file that, the other city is just out of luck. Okay. Now, I cannot file a petition to annex land in another city, and there have been places that have tried to do that in the past, which is another story. But it's, and there's laws on the books about certain things that cities cannot annex. You know, cities cannot, Wichita could not annex McConnell. That's a military base, and the law prohibits us from doing that. There's also certain things that we can't touch, a city cannot touch, regardless of what's going on. But
using the scenario I just talked about, where you've got a piece of land between two cities, and a homeowner or a property owner chooses one city over the other, is the city that's on the outs that doesn't get involved in that process, loses. Okay. So do they lose all rights to oversee or have influence on zoning?
Yes, because it becomes in another city.
So somebody wants to do industrial zoning, and one city wants to do residential. Whoever gets their annexation approved first wins.
I have seen actual cases where landowners in that situation negotiated with the two cities, basically saying, I'll petition to allow you annex me, but here's what I want to do that. And if you don't do it, the other guys will. Then that just becomes part of the game that goes on.
Thank you.
Mr. Foster?
Yeah. Serving on the subdivision committee, one of the things we learned is that there are rural development policies for the plats that we look at in the rural area. And I was curious, given what we're talking about in and around these cities, have those policies been looked at relative to making an ease of transition should these communities decide to annex? And I'm talking relative to roads, drainage, and easements, and everything that goes along with the plat. Has that been researched and updated recently?
No, we do have the subdivision jurisdictions for Mulvane, Valley Center, Derby, and Hayesville. Anytime there is a county subdivision that comes up within those areas, the plat is referred to them. And other than that, it would really only come up, I think, if there was a zoning case with it. Because while a community may see the public notice about a subdivision in an area, as far as I know, we aren't notifying them of subdivision cases.
Thank you.
And I would chime in on that. I'm aware, I know that at least Derby has had plats that came up in their platting jurisdiction, and it's in the rural area. They will coordinate with County Public Works regarding what the county has as adopted policies in their area. But with the other cities that do not have platting jurisdiction, as Stephen talked about, that really is probably a valid question, but I would direct that to Public Works and ask them, and honestly, up to this point in time, they're not going to have any experience with what those cities might say or do if they annex the property into the city, because if they did that, the County Public Works no longer has jurisdiction. It's their city responsibility. Now, they may turn around and want to contract or do something with County Public Works to address the issue. But I would beg the question to County Public Works, and I don't think we have anybody from the county online with that, but that would be a good question to ask them of what process does the county go through on occasion to reach out to the smaller cities to tell them, hey, are you aware this is what we do just outside your border? And if you annex, we want to coordinate or do whatever, because I think that really is kind of what your core of your concern is, of that Sedgwick County has probably got as good of standards and procedures in place as almost any county in the state is going to have. In many respects, they're going to have standards and procedures somewhat higher than even some of our small cities will have, because they just don't have the staff to do that stuff. And if they elect to annex, what do they get with that? And my experience across the state's been that a lot of times a smaller city that suddenly annexes finds out real quick they bit off something bigger than they thought. So.
Okay. Are there any other questions from any of the commissioners? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
What's staff looking for? A motion to approve the plan?
Yeah, the recommended action.
Page 6 of the staff report, there's actually 2 parts. One is the urban growth areas, approved changes to other cities' urban growth areas of the community investments plan, except for Goddard and Garden Plain at this time, as shown in map 2. The Goddard and Garden Plain 2017 boundaries would remain in place, plus to have the MAPD ask Goddard and Garden Plain to submit formal requests next year for changes to the urban growth areas once agreements have been reached between them and updates to the comprehensive plans have been made. The second motion would be recommend changes to other cities' urban areas of influence except for Goddard and Garden Plain at this time, as shown in map 2, as part of the Unified Zoning Code to be adopted by the Sedgwick County Board of County Commissioners. And again, Goddard and Garden Plain would keep their 2017 boundaries, and we would ask them to submit for change next year along with updates of their comprehensive plans.
So basically, if we just move to take the recommended action as presented on the
I think we would like to have 2 separate motions, if you could, please.
Okay.
I would move to approve the urban growth area number 1.
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Dool, to approve the urban areas of growth, urban growth areas. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously, 12-0. Mr. Warren, did you?
Yeah, move to approve the urban areas of influence, item number 2.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Bill Johnson to approve urban areas of influence, item number 2. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. And that's it. We have one more item here to go over, and as we know, this is Mr. Yearout's last meeting with us. He's retiring at the end of the month, and how many years of service both times do you have with the city?
Both times with the city will be just under, well, a little over 5 years.
5 years. Well,
I'm at about 48 and a half statewide.
well, your vast experience and knowledge have been very welcome, and you've always been a go-to source in the organization when issues have come up, and you've always been ready to assist not only commissioners when we've needed some assistance, and you've always been able to find time for the public, and that's a great tool that you have in your belt, that you can communicate effectively with people that know nothing about what we're doing and those of us that know some. Is there anybody else on the commission that would like to? Yes, Mr. Foster.
I'd just like to build on that. The years of experience that Dave has brought to help us make decisions has just been invaluable. And so congratulations and best wishes from here on out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Bill Johnson.
I'm gonna second everything everybody said, but I think we better all get his cell number so we get a hold of him when we need something.
Anybody else? We've got a little card here for you.
Oh, well, thank you.
I think the only person that hasn't signed it yet, he'll get it before you do, will be Mr. Foster. But thank you so much for all you've done for this community, for not only Wichita, but for Sedgwick County and for the entire state. Continue with your Facebook posts, because that's one way I know I'll always be able to keep track of you.
I'm in jail right now. So.
Keep up with you and enjoy your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much.
And if there are no other issues,